And away we go. Friday afternoon, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, have a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And there goes Monkey. Monkey was in the chair. He just left. All right, no cats. Sorry, folks. Again, if you are listening somewhere else and you wanted to join the live portion, you can find it Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, most of the time on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to dive in here. Naturally, I read as many comments as is plausible, and I'll say hello to some of the people that have chimed in. Helter is here, as well as Country Livin', Dragon, Brian, Raccoon is here, as well as Tuck. Glad you all could make it today. Gary Edwards is here. Thanks for joining us. And we'll wait and see if anyone else pops in, but we will go ahead and get started with some of the news. Don't know if anyone was aware, and there is an article, but I'm not going to put it up. Today is National Out Day. Did you know that? Do you care? Do you care? And yes, I literally mean what that sounds like. Look up October 11th, National Out Day or Out of the Closet Day. Don't these guys have enough days? Don't they have enough days? They got a whole month. They need October 11th too, apparently. National Coming Out of the Closet freaking Day. You got to be kidding me. And I was reading the article about it, and the article completely threw me because of how disingenuous it was. And like I said, I didn't pull it up because, I get enough trouble with ScrewTube's algorithms as it is. Guy starts off by saying, I grew up in the punk generation, so I know all about acceptance and understanding. Forehead slap there. Seriously? Are you sure you grew up in the punk generation? Because I did, and I knew some punks. I wasn't part of that clique, but I knew people who were. It was absolutely about total resistance to social and political norms. That's what the punk movement was. It was complete defiance. And in today's day and age, where that sort of thing has become the cultural norm and is pushed on us by government and showcased by media, true punks would resist it. Don't tell me you're a punk and you grew up in that era. You got to be kidding. That's a lie. That's an out and out lie. Then he goes on to say that he understood things better when he married his queer wife. Stomp the brakes. You're a man, I think, unless there's something else going on, and you did not marry a queer wife, okay? Unless there's a lot of understanding in that relationship. Kimberly has joined us. And Raccoon says they have more holidays than our veterans who actually did something to better our world. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. I know it. Does that need to be a day? I mean, it's not necessarily a national holiday. Like National Ice Cream Day is not really a holiday as much as I would like it to be, because I do like ice cream, which is getting harder and harder to find, by the way. I did a short about it a couple of months back. The whole lane is ice cream in the supermarket with all these different ice cream vendors, but they all get the same freaking flavors. There's no variety. How come I can't find coffee anymore? How come I can't find pistachio anymore? I can't even find Neapolitan. Are you kidding me? What happened? There's no ice cream flavors. And then when you do get it, it doesn't taste right anymore. A lot of it, like Edie's. I can't eat Edie's anymore. That shit won't even melt. Seriously. It won't melt. Look for videos on it on YouTube. I'm not kidding. Kimberly says, check West Georgia spay and neuter in Douglasville. Okay, West Georgia. I'll write that down real quick. As you all know, I'm up to my eyeballs in the cats. and it's nothing against them, and I try to help them as much as I can. But now I'm on my second service that is just not keeping up with me. I'm like this close to having the clouder managed, and then I'll just keep feeding them and taking care of them. But it's got to be done. It's got to be done, and they keep pussyfooting around. Let me see, West Georgia. I'll write it down. I'll try to write it down. My pen is acting funny. Yeah, I actually write things down, folks. I don't rely on messages and stuff. Okay, I'll look for that. I'll look for that. Thank you, Kimberly. Gary says lemon chiffon. Yeah. And Country says maybe you'll lock yourselves in the closet and throw away the key day. No kidding. And Raccoon says ice cream cake is awesome. I know. When I was a kid, it was Carvel's and Friendly's more so. Anyone on the East Coast in here today? Friendly's restaurants that had their own brand of ice cream, and they did ice cream cakes. And I don't know if I can think of anyone off the top of my head to compare Friendly's directly to so that you get an idea of their style. I don't know if Friendly's is still around because they were hurting when I left Boston. Yeah, I think I'm going to get one now. I'm craving the crunchy middle. Yeah, ice cream cake is fantastic. Raccoon, I'll give you that. I'll give you that one all day. But yeah, it just kills me that there's a day for that. And then the guy is clearly lying. There's no way he was part of the punk generation, or at least if he was, he don't remember it the way it was, because they were anti-establishment, anti-social order. And currently this is the social order, and they would have resisted it. They fought everything and everybody. They were like Isaac from the Bible. Every hand is against him, and his hand is against every man. There you go. Lore says Cookie Puss. Yep, Cookie Puss. And the whale. Carvel's used to do the whale too. Anyways, New York Post article. Just letting you know where everybody's priorities are, in case you were worried about the victims of the hurricanes in North Carolina. Department of Homeland Security Chief Mayorkas spends under 6 hours in Helene-hit North Carolina before bolting to grab sushi at DC Nobu. I guess that's the name of the restaurant. It said, oh, wow, the pun of the day here. The article captions off something fishy about this. Something fishy about this. Thank you, Mr. Peabody. Who knows who I'm referencing? Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas spent less than 6 hours visiting hurricane-hit areas in North Carolina Thursday before returning to Washington to grab early takeout dinner at Nobu. Mayorkas touched down at the Tar Heel State around 10 a.m. before jetting back to the nation's capital, where he was spotted by the Post at 5:15 p.m. Don't these people realize they're being followed around by paparazzi all over? Carrying bags of food from the posh international Japanese restaurant chain where sushi and samurai selections are priced at $60 a plate. Whoa! And the highest grade Wagyu steaks go for $40 an ounce, $40 an ounce steak. $40, that's $40 a bite. $40 a bite steak. Holy crap. Oh God. And here he is. There he is. He had to fly back to get his lunch. Tuck says, I went to Friendly's a few times. In 2009, nearest location was a county away. It has since closed. Yeah, you used to see Friendly's on the East Coast, and they had the Friendly's ice cream. And it was a decent enough family-style restaurant with their own brand of ice cream. And they started hurting around the time that they branched out and had their own ice cream in supermarkets. I think that's what started hurting them. You know, I wonder if Mayorkas, the whole time that he was in North Carolina, was just jonesing. You know how people get cravings? You know how, like, pregnant women really want to smell like dishwashing liquid or some crap that they tell you, or they really want to eat sardines? I wonder if he's sitting there like, damn, Freaking hurricane, man. God, I could use some sushi. I could really use some overpriced sushi. The first opportunity I get, I'm going to spend thousands in taxpayer dollars to fly back to DC, get me some damn sushi. Oh, man, that'll hit the spot. $60 plates of sushi. So that's, what do you get on a plate? Like 3 pieces? Something like that, right? A typical serving. And $40 an ounce steak. Cabinet official was home by 5:40 p.m., dodging DC's notorious rush hour traffic. New York. Oh, so he managed to get back to DC, get to his favorite sushi bar, and then catch a ride home before the traffic started. Man, you gotta love the life. You gotta love it. Mayorkas had returned to Washington at 4 p.m. after remotely joining a White House press briefing shortly after 1 p.m. and speaking firsthand with FEMA responders, impacted communities, and other first responders on the ground. This administration has completely failed the American people again, according to Mike Johnson, who is the House Speaker. It's offensive that the secretary is wasting time eating overpriced sushi rolls at fancy restaurants when he should be working to get disaster relief out the door immediately for the people in desperate need, of basic necessities. Well, you know, some people, and private charter jet too. Look, there it is. He's not walking through a terminal. He's not walking through a terminal. Kimberly says that's equivalent to Kamala wearing that big expensive gold necklace at the border. I know. What, the $72,000 necklace from Tiffany's, right? Is that the one, Kimberly? Jericho says some craving. I know. Gary wants sushi ice cream. They probably have it. It's probably out there. Green tea ice cream is good. So is Bailey's Irish cream. That's what I mean. You don't find that stuff anymore. You don't find those flavors anymore. It's not out there. Bailey's Irish cream ice cream was non-alcoholic, by the way. I think Haagen-Dazs used to make it. But there he is, chartered private jet at the taxpayer expenses so he can get his ass back to DC so he can get to his favorite sushi restaurant and beat rush hour traffic. That's the life. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the life. Man, I'm doing everything wrong. I should have gotten into politics. Country Living says we wouldn't want the secretary to be inconvenienced at all with the disaster going on. I know. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. The sword of Damocles dangles precariously over Mayorkas's brow, my friends. Or maybe I should have done the King Lear voice there. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, my friends. My horse, my kingdom for a horse. Oh no! Kimberly verifies that's the necklace. I love how when she was talking about the disaster relief and she was called out on it. $750 for disaster relief maximum, because up to $750 for disaster relief in Florida. And she was wearing a belt that she paid $775 for. So she paid more for her belt than you could get for disaster relief. And Johnny Future is here, says he's listening. Glad you could make it today, Johnny, as we pound on Friday here, making fun of Mayorkas and that is brilliant timing. You know the logistics of that? Some intern got paid nothing because he's an intern for scheduling this perfectly scheduling this so that he could finish up whatever the hell he thought he had to do in North Carolina. He made a show of it real quick, chartered flights, taxpayer expense, back to DC to get into his favorite sushi place and back home before rush hour traffic. Perfect. JJ wants Metallica references to King Nothing. Yeah, King Nothing. How about an Adam Ant reference instead? I want those who get to know me to become admirers, or my enemy. Become my admirers or my enemy. Naturally, I didn't sing it with an Irish accent, but you know. And we may as well, since we're close by, jump to New York. Jump to New York. New York Daily News. Another one bites the dust. Is it pulled up yet? Come on now. Interim New York Police Department Commissioner Tom Donlin is expected to step down. And Jessica Tisch is in line for the job, according to sources. And there is Tom Donlin. He's like the third one. He's like the interim chief of police that replaced the chief of police that replaced the chief of police. Holy crap. And Gary says Mayorkas in a closet with a sushi bag. Yeah, there you go. Embattled New York Police Department Commissioner Tom Donlin expected to vacate his post as early as Friday after his background check hit a snag. Oops. And the city's current sanitation department boss, Jessica Tisch, because you know the sanitation department boss is exactly who you want to be in charge of the New York Police Department. She's probably not even qualified to be in charge of sanitation. Is seen as the top contender to replace him, the Daily News has learned. They're running out of people. They're running out of people to replace everybody with. Donlin was appointed by Mayor Adams, so you know he's kosher, to serve as the city's top cop in an interim capacity after ex-police commissioner Edward Caban resigned last month in the wake of having his electronics seized by federal investigators as part of a corruption probe scrutinizing the police department's nightlife enforcement efforts. But just over a week after taking over the reins from Caban, Donlin, an ex-FBI special agent, really, was himself visited at his home by feds who seized materials from him that he claims came into his possession more than 20 years ago and are unrelated to his work with the police department. Sure. Due to the recent raid at Donlin's home, the city department investigation has delayed approving the background check he had to undergo as part of his appointment as interim police commissioner, according to sources familiar with the matter. Incredible. Tuck says the current sheriff of Broward County has hit a background check snag as well. Not conspiracy theory. It's ongoing. Incredible. Incredible, these people. Incredible, these people. It just doesn't stop. The corruption, I mean, they're going to run out of people to put into any government position, and they're going to have a state of emergency in New York City. You can only replace so many people. And at least he has an FBI background. The chief of sanitation's got nothing to do with running the police department. And again, I question, is she qualified to do what she's doing now? Because a lot of these people that have been in these positions were installed and they're not qualified. At least he had some law enforcement background. Dragon says the Adams entire administration is collapsing like a Jenga tower. Really? And Helter says it seems pretty clear at this point that the anonymous tip that was sent to the FBI about Donlin's retaining of classified info came from a faction within the police department. It could be. And once again, you know, I really think that Bishop White is the one that started the ball rolling on all of this. When he got arrested and he reached out to the mayor and couldn't get help, even though they've been friends for years and years and years, suddenly there's all these investigations, and now White's sitting in jail. And he must have figured, if I'm going down, bitch, you're coming with me. Because you should have hooked the brother up. And it didn't happen. And Kimberly says another diversity hire. And Jericho says, how is New York still even functioning? It's not. It's not. New York is a disaster. Ask anybody who's paying taxes out there. The whole thing is falling apart. It is a house of cards. It is a Jenga tower. It is falling apart. Gary Edwards says defund the snitches. No kidding. Snitches get stitches. Actually, well, it depends on what you're snitching against. Because if you're a whistleblower snitch, you end up dead or in jail, apparently. And how many articles have we read about that this week even? This week, remember the guy who gave testimony yesterday about the biolab fire dropped dead in the hallway, or he collapsed in the hallway and died in the hospital. You know, they sent him to Grady. What do you expect? And then the week prior, the woman who was trying to whistleblow on Dominion voting machines, they gave her 9 years. She'll probably die in prison. She's already 70. She's already 70. But here comes the legacy right now. New York Post article. Mayor Adams puts taxpayers on the hook for $1.6 billion a year for migrants through to 2029. This is the legacy you want to leave behind, because you're not getting reelected. You're not going to get reelected, Adams. You may not even finish your term at this point. You're freaking done. And on your way out, you're going to further bury and burden New York taxpayers. Great job. Mayor Adams' prospects of winning a second term or even finishing the first are increasingly uncertain. There you go. That's what I just said. But he's trying to ensure that one big feature of his mayoralty stays in office, even if he doesn't. Billions of dollars in taxpayer money to put migrants up in hotels. Fantastic. Governor Hochul should step in to nix his latest contract bid, which could have border crossers in hotel rooms until 2029. Adams wanted this to be a good news week. Migrant-wise, City Hall announced Wednesday that it will close the 3,000 capacity Randall's Island tent shelter, scene of 2 murders, by February. Really? He bragged his policy of getting single adult migrants who stay there to move on after 30 or 60 days has been effective. There's no evidence of that as far as I know. Plus, with the Biden administration belatedly tightening the border, the number of newcomers has shrunk for the last 4 months or so. Why then, behind the scenes, is the Adams administration taking up the migrant, quote, emergency to sign yet another long-term contract for hotel shelter? Another no-bid contract, I'm sure. And a lot of those contracts are currently under investigation. I don't know where they're going to go, but they're being investigated. As the Post's Carl Campanelli reports, the city's homeless services department will soon sign a new contract to extend the use of 14,000 city hotel rooms as sanctuary sites. The new contract would run until at least June 2026 and have a 3-year renewal option that brings you to June of 2029. The cost of $661 million annually, or $130 a hotel room, and that's per day. That's per day. But the total cost is going to round out at $1.6 billion a year in additional funding. Raccoon says, "I can't believe they'll jail her and not the assault and murder of illegals. It makes no sense. No kidding." And Gary wants to defund the migrants. I don't blame you. And Adams, all people excuse me, has some information about Adams' lineage here. He says crypto Caribbean lineage bragged of how his staff was chocolate. I remember that. I read that article where he said, how can we go wrong with this much? Do you ever seen this much chocolate on the panel? And it's like, you know, if I said that, if I was a politician and I said, you ever see so much vanilla on the panel? Oh man, they'd be setting fire to my house. They would be setting fire to my house. It's insane. It's insane, folks. Crazy time. Crazy time. As we move around. Hey, and Gary says to fund the homeless industrial complex. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a restructuring of the Veterans Administration industrial complex. I don't think anybody in the country besides the public school system wastes more money than they do. My wife got this in the mail. Okay. She got this in the mail. And if you do not know what this is a fecal kit. And she's like, why the hell do I have this? And it's literally exactly what it sounds like, what I just said. It's, I'll cover the address. See? She don't have any problems. And she hasn't complained about anything or asked for anything. But the VA sends her this. Sends her this. So I guess she's supposed to defecate in an envelope and mail it. It's got a self-addressed stamped envelope in it that goes to the VA's Medical Center. Administration Medical Center. And I thought about this because it was sitting on the desk. I thought about this also because she had a phone call with them today where they were trying to schedule her an appointment. We want to reschedule your missed appointment. She was like, I didn't miss an appointment. Well, we want to schedule an appointment for you anyway. Why? I just had an appointment 3 weeks ago. Get this, 3 weeks ago, and they didn't know why I was there. I went into the office. I waited there for like 45 minutes, an hour, and then they came and told me to go in, and I sat down, and then they came and asked me why I was there. And I said, I don't know. I'm here because you scheduled an appointment, your office. And he was like, well, we don't have any, there's nothing on the file as to why you would have to come in. This happens constantly. She's not going to go anymore. She was like, no, I'm not going to the VA anymore. This is ridiculous. They schedule appointments constantly. They send vitamins in the mail, tons and tons of vitamins, big bottles, crazy. Sending stuff like this. Can you imagine how much money? Think about it. How much money does the VA waste with bullshit like this? And then they complain they don't have any funding. Fluke Man is here. Glad you could make it. Johnny says, put me on record right now. Identify as undocumented immigrant. Tell me I can't. I wouldn't do that if Trump wins. Tuck says, don't pass Adams to leave figurative time bombs for following administrations. That's a possibility. A little vindictiveness on the part of Adams. JJ says, man, if only I could mail a turd to other government agencies. I know. No kidding. It doesn't make any sense. And she was like, why do I have this? Why do I have this? The last time I had a proper physical, there were no problems. Tuck says they get similar kits from the doctor, but they aren't mailed to me or from me. Home kits, no mailing. It even says do not mail. It would be a hell of a surprise. It would be a hell of a surprise for the postal inspector if he decided to check this. I'll cover the address and I'll show you. Okay, just so you can see. That is a self-addressed stamped envelope packet. See, it says time sensitive business reply mail. No postage necessary. This is the real deal. And inside here, you think? It's almost like this is a gag. And here's your collection kit. Very small collection kit there. And I guess you put it in here and you put it in the little biohazard bag, and then you stick it in this envelope and mail it back. Oh my God. Oh, they provided a little wipe. That's nice. There is something very wrong with our government, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very wrong with our government. Johnny says he got one too. It's a swab, and you swab the poop, put the swab in the sealed container and return it, and they analyze it and tell you if there's anything wrong. But okay, that sounds to me like something you would want to ask for. All People says 9 out of 10 American blacks are of direct lineage from the Caribbean islands and African continent, with 8 out of 9 being post-1965 arrivals. Sven says for the price of the doctors and staff, they could pay for all the vets to have the best insurance available. Or, I'm going to say it again, how about you offer dental? How about you offer dental? I could get dental in jail. I could get dental care in freaking jail. When I used to have to take the clients from the YRC2 when I worked for juvenile justice, and we were a halfway house essentially, to the dentist's office, they tried to schedule us on the same day that the correctional facility was sending people. And they would have the van, and you'd have guys, men and women from different departments being brought into the dental clinic because they're the ones that handled it. Or they were contracted for it. They had a state contract for dental care. So as a prisoner, I can get fairly quality dental care, but as a veteran, I can't. What the hell is that crap? But they waste so much, and it's just like every other facet of the government. They waste so much of the money. It doesn't make any sense, and it needs to be reeled in and put under a microscope. Okay, do this, get rid of that. Do this, get rid of that. Do this, get rid of that. Take some accountability for it. It's always my argument. We could operate on half of what they take in taxes if they were good stewards of the money, if they didn't misuse, misrepresent, and misappropriate the funds. Fluke Man says, don't they send you an appointment confirmations with reference numbers? Yeah, but if nobody's going to look it up, you don't know what it's for. Tuck says that doesn't sound sanitary. And Tommy is here. He says AI is automatic inquiry. Automatic inquiry. As we, this is big news, and this will counter. Oh, let me throw that back up there from all people. You can take a look at it. We talked about at the very beginning that today is October 11th, and October 11th is official out of the closet day. I kid you not. Now, here is a little story to kick back on that. But in my opinion, it's too little, too late. Too little, too late. And Cougar's here, says they're late. That's okay, Cougar. We appreciate you. No felines in the room. If I'm feeling frisky myself, I might go run and grab one, because I'm sure there's at least 4 of them laying on the bed down the hall. So, Tampa Free Press. No more forced cakes. Court sides with Colorado bakers' free speech and dismisses the lawsuit. And you all know about this. You all know about this, because it's been going on for a while. Colorado Supreme Court has dismissed a lawsuit against Jack Phillips, the owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop, who has been embroiled in legal battles for more than a decade over his refusal to create certain custom cakes due to his religious beliefs. The decision comes as a relief for Phillips, who has faced ongoing legal challenges since 2012, when he first declined to make a cake for a same-sex wedding, citing his faith. The recent lawsuit was filed by an attorney who has been involved in conflicts with Phillips for over 12 years, criticizing him for his views. The case in question sought to compel Phillips to design a custom cake symbolizing a gender transition, a message Phillips said he could not express because it contradicted his beliefs. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled that the lawsuit was improperly filed and dismissed it, but did not address the broader issue of free speech. Enough is enough. This is a quote. Jack has been dragged through the courts for over a decade. It's time to leave him alone, says ADF senior counselor Jake Warner. Free speech is for everyone. As the U.S. Supreme Court held in 303 Creative, the government cannot force artists to express messages they don't believe in. In this case, an attorney demanded that Jack create a custom cake that would celebrate and symbolize a transition from male to female, because the cake admittedly expresses a message, and because Jack cannot express that message for anyone. The government cannot punish Jack for declining to express it. The First Amendment protects that decision. And I'll argue, no, it does not, or else he would not have been in court for 12 years fighting this. How much time, money, energy, and sanity do you think this man lost fighting in court? And those sons of bitches could have gone to some other cake shop. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do a cake that goes against my religious beliefs. I can reference you someplace else, or, I hate to turn down the business, but that's just how I feel. Okay, Jack, I get it. I'll go to such and such cake shop. They'll do it. Problem solved. No, we got to make a federal case out of it and drag this guy through the broken glass for 12 years. Can you imagine how much this cost him? Or get the cake, and put your own stupid decoration on it. How about that? Tuck says, no, Dental, we need more advanced warships that don't work right in our shipyard. Okay. Johnny says sending $6 trillion is more important than giving more health care to veterans. $6 trillion to Iran is more important. Insane. Brian says he wants to confess that he's straight. Gary says, come on and bake it. And there's D-Lo. D-Lo is joining us. And that was my question. JJ says, how much has this poor guy spent in court costs? I can only imagine. I don't think it says here. If I scan through real quick, but I don't see an expense. But that is a great question. Jack Phillips, court fees. I can just imagine. I'm not seeing anything. What, 12 years in and out of court? Can you imagine what that would have cost? Never mind the emotional toll. Never mind the emotional toll for not wanting to do something. Dragon says this man has been put through the ringer multiple times over more than a decade. Why can't they just leave him alone? As a sole proprietor, he should have the right to refuse service to anyone. Correct. And Gary wants to defund alien probes. And All People says they would never have pulled that crap on a Muslim baker. They only target Christians. Yes. And there's a strong argument for that. But I hardly call that a win. I hardly call that a win because, the time, the money, the effort, the energy, and the emotional toll on this man over the last 12 years. And at least he's stuck by his convictions, because at any time he could have said, I give up, and they would have backed off and called that a victory. He didn't. He stuck to his guns, and I got to give him that. I got to give that. And Helter says businesses should be able to refuse offer services to anyone they want. It's not like there are no other businesses to do business with. Yeah. But they wanted, I willing to bet that it was completely a vindictive approach, that the people that came to him initially knew he wasn't going to do it. And they wanted to pretend to be discriminated against. They wanted to pretend to be victimized. They knew he wasn't going to do it. So they could sit there and cry, oh, God. Oh, my little feelings. Oh, my God. Words hurt worse than a beating. Something needs to be done. We need to sue him. That's what that was. That was. I bet they didn't even want a cake. I bet they didn't even want one. Gary says defund nuisance lawsuits. Indeed. Well, Indeed. Everybody thinks they can sue everybody for every freaking thing. And you can't. But I mean, the toll is on you. This guy has been victimized. This guy has been victimized for the past 12 years by these people. Where's his justice? Where's his justice? And could he countersue? And if he could, would he want to bother? Would he want to bother? How much of that can you tolerate? I really want to sit in court for another 12 years over this nonsense? Man wants to get on with his life. Tuck says it's not a win. It could be considered a draw if the parties who persecuted him had to pay all legal fees and lost income. That would be something. Not likely to happen, but that would be something. That would be something. Oh man, this next article is really interesting. And Cougar says, sick of these people wanting to force other people to recognize and celebrate and glorify who they sleep with, as if it's an accomplishment. What have you accomplished? What have you done? What have you done? What have you earned? What have you earned? What great thing have you pulled off? What have you shown the world? Who's going to care in 100 years who you were? Even famous people get forgotten. Even famous people who contributed important things to society are forgotten. JJ says he's probably too burned out to countersue at this point. Yeah, I can imagine. You get to a point where you're like, man, I just don't want to fight anymore. And I know that feeling. You all know my court battles with my exes, both of them, put me through the ringer in court. And I know I was done wrong by the court, by them, by Shawnee County in Topeka. I know I was put through the ringer, and I know they violated rules. I can demonstrate it in some cases. But how much justice can you afford, as they say? I can't afford it. I can't afford to be tied up in court for years trying to demonstrate that a court clerk lied to me, or that a court conciliator lied to me, to even get a judge to listen to that. Example, one of the court conciliators, there was supposed to be a teleconference meeting, and I waited and waited and waited for the phone call. And when they call you, the number comes up all zeros, so you know it's the courthouse, okay? And I waited for the conference call. I'm like, what the hell? I got the wrong date, maybe? So I call in, and she was like, no, you missed it. I called you. And I'm like, no, I don't have a record. Well, are you calling me a liar? I called you. And I was like, well, can you tell me the number? Maybe the number's wrong. It was the correct number. But I mean, we live in the age of cell phones, remember? So there is a record, and there was no call and no message that day. None. She lied. She lied. Did the interview with my ex without me. Left me hanging. Screwed me over. And you know, I could demonstrate that. But how much would that cost for me to go to a higher court and then take that district court to court? How much would that cost? Financially, emotionally, time-wise? With my second ex, and remember, I wasn't married to either of them. Fortunately, that's why I didn't have to pay maintenance, or alimony, they used to call it. They call it maintenance now. I didn't have to pay maintenance because I wasn't married to either of them. A year and a half, and never had my court date. But if I call the trustee's office, yeah, you had a phone conference with the judge. We got a record here. I never spoke to a judge on a phone ever. Never, not one time. Literally ever. On any case. If you have that, I want a copy of the recording. Well, you know, we can only give you a typed transcript, and at some outrageous price per page. You got to be kidding me. Well, the computer says that you were on the conference, so as far as I'm concerned, you were. I can't afford to sue them to prove that they're lying. And what would I get for it? A feeble apology? Johnny says you can't afford a good lawyer. Public defenders aren't going to help you either. No, public defenders are worthless. Public defenders are why half the people are in jail now. But this article, jumping out of my personal life and into the actual news, this is fascinating, and this is the worst thing I've ever heard of. Not really, but it's bad. It's up there. NIL Daily on SI, I guess that's Sirius. Nilly, okay? Kendrick Perkins, platform faces ethical scrutiny. All right? Or is this ONSI? I don't know who the hell this article's from. I had it up on Forbes, but Forbes was getting wonky, and I couldn't, it kept having too many pop-ups. Former NBA champion and TV commentator Kendrick Perkins has attracted attention with the launch of Nilly, a platform designed to help college athletes navigate the intricacies of name, image, and likeness details, or NIL, name, image, likeness. Backed by Harlan Capital Partners, which has committed up to $200 million, Nilly aims to ease the financial strain on athletes by offering upfront payments, get ready for it, in exchange for a percentage of their NIL earnings. Yet, despite its seemingly positive and uplifting intentions, Nilly has faced scrutiny, with some questioning whether the model takes advantage of broke student athletes needing quick cash. Now, to explain, your NIL, or name, image, likeness, is when you contract your name, image, and likeness. So like when Michael Jordan uses his NIL to contract with Nike, and Nike pays him for it. This guy is proposing giving struggling athletes upfront money for permission to take control of their likeness and cash in on it later if they get famous. How dirty is that? How dirty is that? That's scary. It says, launched in February of 2024, Nilly offers athletes cash advances ranging from $25,000 to several $100,000. In return, the company secures exclusive rights to the athlete's nil for up to 7 years. So at the highlight of their career, because most athletes never get as big as Michael Jordan, never get as big as Magic Johnson or Larry Bird or any of the big names you can think of. They never get that big. Most athletes, they flare up and they burn out young. So that 7-year period is when they will shine the brightest before they fade out. Okay? Taking a portion of future earnings anywhere from 10 to 50%. Wow. Though this approach provides immediate financial relief, it has sparked concern among consumer protection advocates and financial advisors. That is dirty. That is really dirty. And this sort of thing has been around since the 1950s, but it's never been this public or upfront. Also, if you're a good athlete in college, you can get financial assistance through agencies that are looking at you to hire you on in draft picks anyways. Helter says things like this have been happening in minor league baseball for years. There you go. Players sign away future earnings for upfront cash. Yeah, he's officially doing this as an out-and-out company now, though. Dragon says players need to stay away from crap deals like this. Predatory as hell. We all know what kind of athletes kids Nilly will be going after. And Gary wants to defund face stealers. Gary wants to defund everybody. Don't defund me, Gary. I need all the help I can get. Tuck says indentured servants in sports ball. I had no idea. Basically, yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like, Tuck. That's a good observation. 7 years, right when they're burning the brightest. Don't you know you are a superstar? Don't you know? And all the world will love you just as long as you are. Who gets that one? Another song reference for you folks. This is really dirty. So basically what Kendrick Perkins is doing is making a business out of directly taking advantage of athletes that are up-and-comers. It says, one case illustrates how much athletes might end up giving away. According to a contract obtained by ESPN, a high school senior received $50,000 up front, agreeing to give Nilly 25% of his NIL earnings for 7 years or until the company recoups $125,000, which is 2.5 times its original investment. Critics argue that deals like this can leave athletes with significant financial burdens long after they leave college, with some paying the equivalent of $75,000 in potential earnings just to access $50,000 up front, a steep cost for short-term relief. At least when you go to the check cashing place, they only charge you 15%. Oh, Tuck says bad company. And D'Lo says you're a superstar. That's right. Don't you know that you are a superstar? Up to 50%. It's taking advantage of these kids who are young and stupid, need help, and probably squander the funds, probably spend it on a car that'll get repossessed because they can't make the payments on it. I get me a Bentley. I'm going to put a $50,000 down payment on me a Bentley. I'm going to get me a BMW. And then can't afford it, and it gets repoed. And then they've lost everything. And then they owe this jackass forever trying to pay it off. That's horrible. That's a horrible thing to do to people. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, I know people are in business to make money, but do you have to take advantage of them so badly? Bible talks about that. You're not supposed to take advantage of people. How does the passage go? If you take their coat for collateral, you need to give it back. You should give it back because that coat may be all they have. Be careful about how far you push it, is what they're saying. Yehovah doesn't like it, or God does not like it, when you rip people off in a deal. A deal is a deal is a deal, but don't rip people off. Don't cheat them. This is cheating them 50%, 10 to 50%, 10 to 50% over 7 years. I don't know what to say about that. I hope a lot of people don't go for it. I hope a lot of people don't go for it. CNN article telling us what we already knew. What we already knew says fluoride in drinking water poses enough of a risk to merit new EPA action, according to judges. A federal judge has ordered the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to further regulate fluoride in drinking water because high levels could pose a risk to the intellectual development of children. We've known this for decades. We've known this for decades. You're going to act like this is brand new. U.S. District Judge Edwin Chen cautioned that it's not certain that the amount of fluoride typically added to water is causing lower IQ in kids, but he concluded that mounting research points to an unreasonable risk that it could be. He ordered the EPA to take steps to lower that risk, but didn't say what those measures should be. The judge's ruling is another strike descent to a practice that has been hailed as one of the greatest public health achievements of the last century. Fluoride strengthens teeth and reduces cavities by replacing minerals lost during normal wear and tear, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I haven't drank tap water in decades. My teeth are fine, except for the one that broke. Last month, a federal agency determined with moderate confidence that there is a link between higher levels of fluoride exposure and low IQ in kids. The National Toxicology Program based its conclusion on studies involving fluoride levels at about twice the recommended limit for drinking water. The EPA, a defendant in the lawsuit, argued it wasn't clear what impact fluoride exposure might have at lower levels, but the agency is required to make sure there is a margin between the hazard level and exposure level, and if there is a sufficient margin, then the chemical poses a risk. Simply put, the risk to health at exposure levels in the United States drinking water is sufficiently high enough to trigger regulatory responses by the EPA under federal law. The thing is, though, they're counting. They have their percentage of what they think the average person drinks in a day of average tap water. It's not calculated, however, that people drink more than just the tap water. Actually, most people don't even drink tap water unless they're mixing it with something. That almost every beverage that they buy is using tap water. They're probably drinking double the amount of what the regulation thinks it should be. Plus, they bathe in it. They brush their teeth with it. How much fluoride do they freaking need? How much? And this has been an argument for decades. And town councils all across the country for decades, people have come out en masse to try to force the town councils to vote to have the water department quit dumping fluoride in the water, or at least not so much. And the town council votes to keep doing it anyways, every freaking time, or damn near. This is why, and I should put it on a t-shirt, this is not an issue of not trusting the science. I trust the science. I just don't trust scientists. I don't trust scientists. Okay? Simple as that. Because they can be bought. How many decades did they tell us smoking was healthy? Doctors and scientists, people who took Hippocratic oaths to maintain people's health, to do no harm. Lying for a check. And I've said it 100 times. Maybe somebody new is in here and they'll hear it. My mother was told by a doctor to smoke menthols. She did get throat cancer eventually, by the way. I don't know if I ever mentioned that. Small surgery and she was fine, but still. JJ says, damn, maybe that's why I'm a dullard. I don't know about that, JJ. Don't sell yourself short too easily. But this is something that people have known for decades. And as I've pointed out before, there you've got your three levels of scientists. Scientist who says A is the truth, scientist who says B is the truth, and then the guy in the middle who says, well, A or B, how much funding can I get? And unfortunately, the majority of people are in B. The majority of these scientists, I guarantee they're in B. But now they're going to come at us. Oh, fluoride might be a health concern. Like it's brand freaking new. Like we're all morons. Like we haven't heard this for decades. Like we haven't been hearing this since, God, when did they start dumping fluoride in big time? In the 60s, right? I'm trying to remember when they started incorporating it directly. When they first started dumping it into water on a regular basis across the entire United States. The first place was Grand Rapids, Michigan in 1945, it says. So they were the first ones to do it. Grand Rapids, Michigan in 1945. When did they start doing it nationally, though? It doesn't say. Because it's like, 1952, I think, is what it says. So earlier than the 60s. I was off on that. 1952, it looks like. And, it could be, there might be another number out there as well. Who knows? There might be another number out there as well. But we all knew this. Excuse me. We all knew this. Just like we know cigarettes smoking is not good for you. Just like we know vaping is not good for you. Just like we know food coloring is not good for you. Just like we know corn syrup is not good for you, especially if it's high fructose corn syrup. We know that artificial sweeteners are not good for you. What is done to prevent it? What is done to prevent it? How much soft money is being dumped into politicians' pockets by lobbyists for these corporations to keep it flowing? People that won't eat this stuff. Trust me. No. They spend a fortune chartering planes on taxpayer dollars to fly to DC to go to their favorite sushi place and spend a few $100 on $40 an ounce steak and time it perfectly so that they can get home before rush hour traffic. That was Mayorkas, by the way, if you missed it earlier. Mayorkas, he ditched North Carolina so that he could run all the way out there and get to his favorite sushi place before rush hour traffic in DC. You got to love it. That guy needs to lose his job. Needs to lose his job, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. It's incredible. And Kimberly says, don't forget lead paint and asbestos. Yeah, and they eventually got rid of that too, finally. But there were a lot of people who knew that that was no good. And they fought that forever. That asbestos was no good, lead paint was no good. And eventually one day they just came to the conclusion, yeah, okay, lead pipes too was another one, lead pipes. And that's why the whole mandate, and I read the story about it a few weeks ago with Biden and Harris saying that they're making this mandate to ban lead pipes. And that's just playing into how dumb they think everybody is, because lead pipes were banned in, like, I think the last year that they allowed for the installation of lead pipes was 1929. And, again, fact check that. I might be off. I believe it was 1929, and anytime lead pipes are found, they're to be removed and disposed of since then. So if they dig up a street and they find a lead pipe, even if it's no longer connected to anything, because at this point it wouldn't be, new pipe would have been laid, they are supposed to remove it and dispose of it as hazardous waste. So I'm like, okay, Biden, you're supposed to be protecting black people because this is his argument. Oh, black, indigenous and black and low income families are suffering because of lead pipes. What decade do you think this is? What decade do you think this is? And I'll look it up really quick. Okay, so it was by the 1930s, but it was officially put on record in 1986. It was officially put on record in 1986. That's when they put it on paper, but by then there wasn't much left. Just to emphasize. And with that, we are at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and start signing off. So again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find, if you're listening somewhere else, the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. Thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. All People says, great show. Thank you, All People. I try. All I can do is give an honest opinion. So hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again on